The Grand Convergence Chamber aboard the orbital station Seraph V glimmered with chrome curves and synthetic ivy that swayed in microgravity. It was designed to impress, with its glass floor panels revealing the planet below, a ribbon gas giant churning in lavender and gold. Representatives from over 100 civilizations stood arranged in ceremonial order. Insectoids clicking in anticipation, silicon-based lifeforms humming at frequencies most couldn't hear, and carbon-based mammals fluffing or sweating according to nervous cultural tics. This was history. Unity. Then the humans showed up late, sipping drinks. A pair of polished black boots stepped onto the chamber floor with an unbothered click. General Vera Lynch gave a casual wave, her uniform jacket undone at the collar, and a silver Earth insignia barely reflecting the light. A small coffee stain marred her sleeve. She didn't seem to notice, or she didn't care. "Sorry we're late," she said, flashing an overly friendly smile. "Our pilot got distracted by a rerun of diners, drive-ins and death worlds. You know how it is." The silence from the assembled Galactic Council wasn't frosty so much as stunned. The Supreme General of the Valerian Empire, Zarkal son of Zarkal, took a step forward. 9 feet tall, all ornamental armor and ancient menace, he tilted his long ridged skull and blinked his 4 eyelids slowly. A ceremonial staff, more weapon than symbol, rested against his shoulder. "You are late," he said, his voice a layered rumble like tectonic plates being ground in a blender. "And your attire is informal." Vera glanced down at herself. "I didn't realize we were being graded on presentation. Should I have brought a crown and a fog machine too?" A few alien diplomats twitched their sensory appendages in confusion. Was that humor? Was it disrespect? Could one entity contain both? A second human stepped forward, more conventional looking. Lieutenant Amos Chen, sharply dressed, stoic, his face unreadable but eyes flickering with quiet amusement. He said nothing, just stood precisely 1 pace behind Vera, hands behind his back, surveying the chamber like it was already a crime scene. Zarkal took another step forward. His voice deepened. "The Galactic Council meets to determine peace and cooperation. And you arrive, flippant." "Not flippant," Vera replied. "Relaxed. You'll find humans work best when nobody's breathing down their necks with proclamations and opera armor." An insectoid diplomat, Krivtal of the Zelkonic Mindweave, stepped delicately between them, mandibles fluttering. "Perhaps we can proceed with introductions and cultural overviews?" Vera beamed. "Lovely idea. Earth, Sol System. You've probably heard of us, scrappy, oddballs, lots of emotional movies and strange holidays." Zarkal's nostrils flared. "The Valerian Empire spans 100 stars. We eradicated pestilence, hunger, and internal conflict 5,000 years ago. What has Earth accomplished?" Vera said, tilting her head as though checking off a mental list. "Well, we've invented 3 different types of cheese powder, keep losing billionaires in space, and conquered boredom by making shows about people cooking under pressure while defusing relationship drama." That got a laugh from Lieutenant Chen. One short snort. Possibly sarcastic. Zarkal wasn't amused. "You mock this council." Vera's eyes sharpened just a fraction. Her smile didn't fade, but it was suddenly honed. "No, General. We simply don't worship ceremony. We like results. And if those come with a side of sarcasm and caffeine addiction, that's a feature, not a bug." For a moment, it seemed the air between them crystallized. No threat had been made, no weapon drawn, yet the tension grew until even the ambient translators paused in sync. A chime sounded, neutral tones indicating commencement. The summit was officially in session. Vera took her place at the human podium. It had been set slightly smaller than the others, presumably out of miscalculation or mockery. She didn't mind. She just kicked it once with the heel of her boot. A quiet servo whine followed as the podium expanded by 10 centimeters. Satisfied, she cleared her throat. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Council," she began, almost sincerely. "We come not with demands, but with curiosity. Earth is new to the galactic scene, yes. But we've endured extinction events, fought wars over parking spaces, and built empires out of sheer stubbornness. I think you'll find us resilient. A spindly delegate from the Mindfold Nebula emitted a sequence of telepathic chords that translated as, "Why do you send a warrior instead of a diplomat?" "Because," Vera said with a shrug, "sometimes the best diplomats know how to end a fight before it starts." The pause that followed was cut short by the sound of something large and metallic striking the floor. General Zarkal had stepped forward again, hand clenched into a fist. "Your presence offends order," he growled. "That's not new," Vera replied. "We've been offending authority since we invented chairs with wheels." That did it. In a blur of motion that shocked even the Council's more militant species, Zarkal lunged and slapped Vera across the face. The sound cracked like a whip, echoing through the chamber. Several delegates gasped, some reached for weapons or retreated. Zarkal stood tall, nostrils flaring, expecting a collapse, a retreat, a surrender. Instead, Vera just blinked. Her face turned slowly back to center. No expression. Just that same calm, almost lazy posture. The silence in the chamber went from tense to holy. 3 seconds passed. That was all she gave him. Without raising her voice, Vera took a single step forward. Her hand rose. Not fast, not dramatic, but precise. She touched a point just below Zarkal's third rib, twisted slightly and pressed. The Valerian general collapsed as though his bones had forgotten their job. He hit the floor hard, his ceremonial armor clattering uselessly. Vera crouched beside him, brushing imaginary dust from her uniform. "I don't like being touched," she said quietly. "Also, your posture's terrible and you're breathing through the wrong mouth." That nerve cluster was practically begging for attention. Zarkal tried to speak, but all that came out was a strangled wheeze. His massive limbs twitched as he tried to stand. "Don't strain," Vera advised, rising. "It'll pass in about 10 minutes. Try humming. Or regret." The other delegates were stunned. No one moved. Even Lieutenant Chun raised an eyebrow. Vera turned back to the council. "Now then," she said, smoothing her jacket. "Shall we talk peace, or do you need a few more demonstrations?" A long, coiling delegate from the Gasform Coalition hissed out a cautious query. "What was that?" Vera smiled. "A very specific pressure point maneuver. Taught to us by monks who live on a mountain shaped like an alligator. Or maybe I made that up. Either way it works." An amphibious ambassador from the Jintorii Empire blinked rapidly. "He is the supreme commander of the Valerian fleet. You just incapacitated him in front of the galaxy." "Yes," Vera replied, almost cheerfully. "Which, I'll admit, is a hell of a first impression. But consider this, we're the polite ones." A cold whisper of realization passed through the room. For all their informality, for all their jokes and strange Earth references, the humans had just reminded everyone that formality does not equal restraint. Civility is not the same as weakness. Lieutenant Chun stepped beside her. "They're going to need to re-evaluate our diplomatic classification." "Him," Vera said. "Preferably before I have to teach anyone else the location of their emergency shutdown button." Krivtal, still stunned, tapped his mandibles together. This is an act of aggression." "Correction," Vera said. "That was self-defense. The act of aggression was the slap. Which, I must note, I received with remarkable restraint." A reptilian delegate muttered. "What are humans?" "Ah," Vera said, turning slightly. "Now that is the right question." She stepped down from the podium and began to walk the floor, each bootstep echoing with confidence. "We're survivors. We joke because we've seen things you wouldn't believe. We laugh because crying got boring. We value peace, yes, but don't mistake that for softness. We come offering cooperation, mutual growth, and maybe the occasional weird cultural festival. But cross a line, just once, and you'll learn exactly how much we've been holding back." Silence. Then, a quiet sound. Applause. From one corner. A thin, frail-looking delegate of the Minari, one of the oldest species present, tapped its withered digits together. The sound grew. Reluctant at first. Confused. But growing. Vera stood tall. She didn't bow. Zarkal, groaning, tried to raise his head. His pride had shattered louder than his armor. Vera glanced at him and smiled, but not cruelly. "Next time," she said gently, "use your words." Then she turned and walked away, leaving behind a hall full of stunned silence, a broken empire's general, and the unmistakable impression that Earth had not just arrived. They had arrived with intent. And no one knew yet what the hell that intent was. But they were about to find out. The Galactic Council postponed the next session by 13 hours. Officially, it was to allow Supreme General Zarkal time to recover from a minor medical event. Unofficially, every species was scrambling to reassess their diplomatic risk index for humanity. No one expected the humans to stay. Most assumed Earth would quietly depart, escorted with stern looks and passive-aggressive sanctions. Instead, General Vera Lynch requested a second pot of coffee and asked if she could take a walk through the station gardens. She had never looked more relaxed. "I'm guessing they're recalibrating all our diplomatic designations," Lieutenant Amos Chun said as they passed under the bioluminescent vines of the arboreal dome. Vera murmured, sipping from a steaming mug labeled, "World's okayest general." "Let's hope they move us from unstable novelties to potential existential threats. Closer to the truth. Do you think they realize it yet?" Vera glanced up at the stars glittering above the dome's artificial sky. "They know something's off. But knowing and understanding are different beasts. Let them squirm." Station security was tailing them, discreetly, poorly. Vera waved at one of them. The young Zarnakian enforcer stumbled over its own exoskeletal joints and pretended to be inspecting a fern. Lieutenant Chen chuckled. "We should charge tuition. This is turning into a seminar." They rounded a corner and entered the stone pathway leading to the Council's strategic archives, a building shaped like a spiral shell, every chamber growing in significance as you descended. Only 10 species had unrestricted access. Earth was not one of them. Still, the doors opened. Waiting inside was Ambassador Krivtal of the Zelkonic Mindweave, his mandibles fluttering nervously as they entered. "General Lynch. Lieutenant Chen. The Council has agreed to an informal inquiry. If you'd be so kind." Vera stepped forward. "Of course. Always happy to clear up any misunderstandings. Especially the ones caused by, say, public nerve disruption techniques." Krivtal twitched. He didn't laugh, but a ripple of nervous color passed over his thorax. "We are not accustomed to such direct negotiations. Consider it an Earth custom. We usually try diplomacy, but we also invented hockey fights and marital counseling. Sometimes force clears the air." They were led into a domed chamber where representatives from 8 major factions hovered or stood, all facing them like judges before a trial. Zarkal was absent. So were the bruises to Vera's ego. Krivtal gestured with one limb. "We ask only that you answer with honesty and respect. Many of us are uncertain how to classify your species now. Try efficient," Chen offered. "Or resourceful. We also respond to misunderstood." An elder from the Gornachi tribes leaned forward. "You're not like other primitives. You don't posture like the aggressive species. You smile while disabling a general. Why?" Vera folded her arms. "Because smiles are disarming. Literally in some cases. Humans learn early how to balance civility with threat. It's cultural." "Explain." Vera paced slowly, her voice taking on a thoughtful lilt. "Earth is chaos. A planet of storms and predators, fire and ice, tectonic fury, and emotional instability. We grew up trying not to die, from nature, each other, or sheer stupidity. We evolved not just to survive, but to predict, adapt, manipulate. That's why we joke in dangerous situations. That's why we seem relaxed. We're scanning you while we sip tea." A crystalline delegate of the Elysian Concord interjected with a tone that managed to sound haughty even through the translator. "You lack the refinement of advanced civilizations. The Valerian Empire lasted for millennia without incident, until you arrived." Vera tilted her head. "Refinement? You mean the part where your finest general assaulted a guest in front of your galactic peers? Because where we're from, that's not refinement. That's a temper tantrum with an echo. Lieutenant Chun cracked his knuckles quietly behind her. The sound echoed louder than expected in the acoustics of the chamber. Krivtal tried to steer the conversation back. General Lynch, do you admit your response was disproportionate? I admit it was precise, she said. 3 seconds. One move. Minimal harm. He's alive, right? Breathing? Embarrassed but intact? That's a success story by Earth standards. The Minari elder blinked slowly. And had he done worse? Vera's smile dimmed a notch. Then so would we. The statement lingered in the air. Not a threat, but a promise folded neatly inside civility. An artificial silence fell across the council. Chen used it to scan the room with a soft retinal click, recording facial expressions, microreactions, subtle tells. Several species were sweating. Others had begun adjusting exit routes. No one was at ease. Krivtal gestured nervously. Perhaps we should adjourn. No need, Vera said. I think we're beginning to understand each other. And if you're curious, yes, we knew the slap might come. We also knew how to respond. You see, Earth doesn't like unknowns. So we don't arrive unprepared. What does that mean? Asked the amphibious Jintorii diplomat. It means our diplomatic team includes 3 former Black Ops strategists, a cultural psychologist, and someone who once negotiated a ceasefire between rival nations using nothing but pizza and sarcasm. We sent our best. You're just lucky I'm the friendly one. The crystalline delegate looked genuinely horrified. Your culture masks aggression and humor, one delegate noted. That's deeply disturbing. Vera shrugged. We find it comforting. Helps the medicine go down. Krivtal looked down at his notes. And the cargo you've brought aboard, Seraphi? Human supplies. Provisions. A few small gifts. Several of the crates are marked Containment Class 6. They're labeled for safety, Chen said. Containment protocols are a bit different on Earth. Krivtal's eyes narrowed. You mean to say you brought biological threats? Technically, Vera answered. We brought spiders. But they're in jars. Educational purposes. Every delegate flinched, even the ones without spines. Just kidding, she added, after an uncomfortable pause. Mostly. That ended the inquiry. Or rather, the council ended it for fear of what further questions might reveal. Vera and Chun were escorted out of the archives under heavier security, though neither of them looked particularly impressed. Back in their quarters, Vera removed her jacket and sat with her feet up on the edge of a conference table. The view from their window showed distant stars swirling like paint in motion. Chen stood nearby, watching the door. Did you see the Elysian delegate's mandible twitch when you mentioned spiders? Made my whole day. We're pushing it. I know, Vera said, exhaling. But it has to escalate. They need to know what they're dealing with. Otherwise, they'll keep underestimating us. Chen nodded. The crates are in place. Phase 1 is ready. She looked at him over the rim of her coffee mug. How's the AI analysis? Updating hourly. Council infrastructure is decades behind ours. We've already penetrated 70% of their security net. Good. Any sign Zarkal's planning retaliation? Chen frowned. No direct comms. But his fleet has begun quiet maneuvering near the neutral zone. Minimal chatter. Could be posturing. Could be suicide, Vera muttered. He's still thinking in linear power structures. Poor man's going to learn about nonlinear chaos the hard way. Chen hesitated. Are we giving them a chance to adapt? We're showing them the cost of underestimating a species that learned to build nuclear weapons before it figured out reliable plumbing. We gave them a warning. Now we give them the test. A sharp chime interrupted them, an urgent station-wide broadcast. A moment later, Krivtal's panicked voice filled the room. Attention Council delegates, there has been a containment breach in the central hangar. Multiple biosecurity alarms have been triggered. Human crates are involved. Vera didn't move. She finished her sip. So, Phase 1 begins. Chen looked impressed. 3 hours early. They're faster learners than I thought, she said, rising to her feet. They moved with purpose, not panic. By the time they reached the hangar, chaos was already in full swing. Station security had cordoned off 3 zones. Hissing drones tried to contain a thick, greenish mist that was billowing from one shattered crate. Alien delegates in environmental suits yelled into translators, trying to decipher what kind of weapon had been deployed. A terrified technician grabbed Vera's arm. What did you bring? What is that?" She peered into the mist. "That? Oh, that's cilantro." The technician blinked. "What?" "Herbs. Grows aggressively. Doesn't agree with certain alien olfactory systems. Especially the Valerian sinus clusters. Gives them hallucinations." The Valerian standing nearby promptly screamed and attempted to fight an invisible enemy. "It's also delicious with tacos," Vera added helpfully. Within moments, medical drones flooded the area. Several delegates began demanding answers. Others began accusing Earth of biological aggression. Chun tapped his datapad. Containment protocols activated. But it's spreading. Slight breach in airflow control. "Let it spread a little more," Vera said quietly. "Nothing lethal. Just unsettling." "What are you trying to prove?" "That we know every pressure point in this station, physical or political. That we're here with open arms, but also with gloves, tools, and maps of their vulnerabilities. This isn't a war. It's a stress test." Back in the council chamber, panic was still rising. Krivtal confronted her as she arrived. "This is an act of sabotage. This is your ventilation system doing what it was designed to do," Vera said. "Circulate. We just added a challenge." Zarkul returned then, scarred but standing, eyes bloodshot. He saw the chaos and pointed a clawed finger at her. "You brought corruption into this summit." Vera stepped forward, stopping inches from him. "No, General. We revealed it." The words hit harder than any physical strike. Zarkul faltered. Not physically, but strategically. He realized, too late, that he'd already lost. "This place needed a reality check," Vera continued. "You talk about unity while posturing for dominance. You label newer civilizations as primitives while hiding your own instability behind ritual. Well, Earth doesn't do ritual. We do results." The chamber quieted. Everyone waited for the counterattack. It never came. Instead, Zarkul turned and left. The doors hissed shut behind him. No words. Just silence. Vera exhaled. Chen leaned in. "You just outpoliticked a warlord." "I didn't outpolitic him," she replied. "I outhumaned him." The council recessed for the day, too shaken to continue. Delegates scattered to reassess alliances, update threat assessments, and, for some, consider new alliances. In their quarters, Chen finally asked the question aloud. "Are we the villains in their story?" Vera didn't answer immediately. She sat by the window again, watching the stars drift like sparks. "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe we're just the mirror. The one that shows them what they'd rather not see. Either way, we're here now." And outside, the station spun in silence, a beacon of diplomacy wrapped around a ticking clock no one had realized was counting down. Not yet. The lights in Corridor 9 flickered once, then again. No alarms sounded, no lockdown protocols engaged. On the surface, Seraph V still maintained the illusion of calm, an interstellar bastion of peace floating above a volatile planet, but beneath the polished titanium and floral aesthetics, something ancient and human had begun to stir. The attempt came at 3:12 station time. 7 Valerian shock troops moved silently through the inner transit ring, each equipped with cloaking harnesses and electromagnetic disruptors. None wore insignia, but the intent radiated from them like heat. This was not a sanctioned maneuver. This was vengeance. They breached the human quarters precisely, overriding the station's access permissions with a subroutine only someone like Zarkul could authorize. The hallway beyond their entry point was dark, intentionally so. They advanced in a diamond formation, weapons primed. And they were expected. The first 2 soldiers dropped in silence. The third made a startled clicking sound before his harness shorted out, revealing his outline just long enough for a targeted sonic dart to impact his sternum. The others froze. Then the light snapped on, sharp and unflinching. Standing at the far end of the corridor, arms behind his back, was Lieutenant Amos Chen. "You're late," he said calmly. The Valerians didn't hesitate, they charged. Chen stepped aside. A panel opened in the ceiling. 4 steel arms shot downward, releasing gas, flashes of light, directional pulses tuned to Valerian neurological weakness. The soldiers crumpled like discarded armor. Chen approached the last one, who struggled to reach for his weapon. Chen gently kicked it away, then crouched, his tone cordial. "Your team's infiltration protocols are outdated by 2 decades. You might want to update your firmware." The soldier hissed something in a dialect the translator refused to render. Chen tapped his earpiece. "Package neutralized. No casualties. Minor property damage. No press leaks." From the other end of the comm, Vera's voice was almost disappointed. "Only minor damage? You're slipping." Chen smiled faintly. "We aim for elegance." By 3:25, the Valerian team had been secured in a private holding bay, reserved for diplomatic misunderstandings. Their weapons had been catalogued, their armor scanned, their internal trackers scrambled. A message was dispatched to Zarkal's flagship, not to accuse, but to inform. Vera Lynch stood beside the viewport in Observation Deck 4, watching the distant lights of the neutral zone flicker like silent arguments. She sipped from a cup of tea this time, something floral, deceptively soothing. "Now we know," she said quietly. Chen approached, nodding once. "He's not going to stop. Humiliation wasn't enough. He's spiraling." "Let him," Vera said. "The more he tries to provoke us, the more he reveals the rot beneath that armor of tradition." Chen glanced out at the stars. "The council?" Rattled. "Not stupid. They'll realize soon enough who can protect them from this kind of thing." A pause. "Have we heard from the AI yet?" Chen handed her a slim datapad. "Latest briefing. Operation Grin and Bear, it is 72% complete. Psychological profiles indicate several species are beginning to re-evaluate their diplomatic hierarchies. 3 minor civilizations have already requested Earth-based security advisors." Vera read the report with the same expression one might use to scan a breakfast menu. "Huh. That was faster than projected." "We're efficient." "We're terrifying," she corrected, not unproudly. The door to the deck opened. An older Minari ambassador, skin like translucent paper, entered with 2 aides. He bowed, not deep, but with intent. "General Lynch. We would speak." Vera gestured to the nearby bench. "Of course. Tea." The Minari declined. "We have reviewed the footage. We understand now that the slap was not the beginning. It was the end of your patience." "I'm impressed," Vera said. "Most councils need a war to learn that." The ambassador hesitated. "Are you here to conquer us?" "No," she said plainly. "We're here to test you." A silence fell, respectful and uneasy. "And if we fail?" Vera leaned back. "Then we don't need to conquer you. Someone else will. And you'll wish it had been us." The Minari considered this. Then, softly, "There is a storm coming, isn't there?" "There always is," Vera replied. "But we know how to surf it." The Minari left without another word. Chen turned to her, expression tight. "You just threatened 100 civilizations with a smile and a proverb." "I didn't threaten. I offered context." By morning, the rumors had spread. Not officially, of course. No dignitary would admit to sharing classified station footage, but the data leaks were surgical. Select sequences showing the Valerian ambush. The human response. The calm dismantling of elite warriors using tactics that looked less like battle and more like choreography. And beneath every frame, the quiet implication. Humanity is not what you think it is. The council convened again, this time with reinforced security and an unusual air of humility. Vera stood once more at the podium, now at eye level with the rest. "I know what you're all wondering," she began, cheerful. "Why are we here? Why risk diplomacy when we're clearly capable of other, persuasive methods?" A few delegates shifted uncomfortably. "We're here," she continued, "because Earth has learned something important. Power without structure is chaos. Structure without teeth is delusion. And right now, this council leans dangerously toward the latter." Krivtal shifted in his seat, mandibles tight. "You accuse us of weakness?" "I state it as observation. Your most powerful general just attempted an unsanctioned strike on a diplomatic representative. That's not strength. That's panic dressed in armor." Zarkul was not present. Nor were his remaining aides. Rumor held that he had gone silent, retreating to his ship's inner sanctum to reassess. Others suggested his fleet was preparing to make a move. "If you want peace," Vera said, "you need enforcers who don't buckle when protocol fails. Who adapt. Who play offense when needed. Earth's history is violent, yes. But it's also innovative. We've had more governments collapse and reform in 2 centuries than most of you have had birthdays. And yet, we're still here. Smiling. Evolving." A diplomat from the Elysian Concord stood, his crystal voice carefully measured. "And what do you want in return for this stability you offer?" "Nothing you haven't already agreed to," Vera said. "Open cooperation. Mutual development. Shared technology. And the understanding that if you hit us, we hit back harder. Fair, really." Another diplomat leaned forward. "Are we your experiment?" "We're all someone's experiment," Vera replied. "The trick is surviving long enough to write your own lab report." The council recessed once more. This time, they didn't run. They studied. They whispered. They began to understand. Later that evening, Chun met Vera in the tactical suite. The central table displayed a rotating holographic map of Seraph V and its surrounding sectors. Colored dots indicated known fleet movements. Several red markers had begun to pulse at the edges. "Zarkul's ships are repositioning," Chen said. "We intercepted partial orders. He's planning something kinetic." "Of course he is," Vera murmured. "It's what blunt instruments do when precision fails." "You think he'll attack the station?" "I think he'll try. But that's not the real move." Chen frowned. "Explain." Vera tapped the map. "He's hoping to provoke us. Force Earth into a war, then paint us as the aggressors. It's all he has left. Narrative warfare. So we stay defensive? We stay unpredictable." She turned to him. "Initiate Phase 2. Chun didn't ask. He simply nodded. Across the station, subtle shifts began. Human personnel, once background observers, moved into command advisory roles. Station systems began integrating Earth-made firewalls. Human language signage appeared alongside the Galactic standard. New supply drones arrived bearing crates labeled Infrastructure Enhancement Modules. No one knew what was in them. No one wanted to ask. A message was sent to Zarkul. Plain, unencrypted. To Supreme General Zarkul of the Valerian Empire. "Your tactics are known. Your fleet's movements logged. We advise caution. Sincerely, General Vera Lynch. Strategic Officer, Earthsphere. No threats. Just facts. Delivered with that maddening human calm." At midnight station time, Vera stood alone in the arboreal dome again, watching simulated moonlight ripple over the engineered pond. Chen joined her. "He'll come." "Yes," she said. "You're ready." "I was ready before we left Earth." A silence fell. "You think the Council will back us?" he asked. "They don't need to back us. They need to watch. When Zarkul makes his move, we won't respond with missiles. We'll respond with mathematics. Strategy. A level of information warfare this galaxy hasn't seen since the Fourth Quiet War." Chen exhaled. "You've been planning this since the application to the summit, haven't you?" Vera didn't answer. She didn't need to. Outside the dome, unseen to the naked eye, a fleet of Earthships repositioned with surgical precision, silent, cloaked, and waiting. Not to strike, but to observe. To measure the galaxy's response to pressure. To see who bent, who broke, and who adapted. Vera took another sip of her tea. "You ever notice," she said, "that apex predators rarely need to roar?" Chen smirked. "They just walk into the room, and everything goes quiet." The stars above continued their endless, indifferent dance, but something in the galaxy had shifted. A balance of power, long taken for granted, had tilted slightly off-center. And Earth was smiling. The attack came during the morning session, when the Galactic Council had gathered under the fragile illusion that progress was possible. The chamber's great dome gleamed as ever, sunlight from the system's nearest star refracted through crystalline shielding, casting rainbows across 100 polished insignias and ceremonial robes. It was as close to peace as Seraph V had ever appeared. A final performance of order. Then came the sound. Low, rhythmic, ancient. A warhorn pulse emanating from the Valerian fleet drifting just outside the station's defense perimeter. Still technically in neutral space, but now pulsing with intent. The chamber stilled. The diplomats froze. No one needed a translator to understand that sound. It was not a declaration. It was a sentence. Krivtal's mandibles trembled as he turned to Vera Lynch. They wouldn't dare. Vera, in her now characteristic fashion, calmly sipped a double espresso. General Zarkal is many things. Visionary is not one of them. Chen entered through the eastern archway, datapad in hand, voice clipped. 37 ships mobilized. 5 heavy assault carriers. Dozens of drones. They're in wedge formation. Preparing a directed strike. Targets? Chen didn't need to answer. Everyone in the chamber knew. Vera stood slowly, set her coffee down with precision, and gave the chamber a small, composed smile. "Ladies and gentle beings, it seems the Valerian Empire is about to confirm everything I've said about your vulnerability." The Minari elder leaned forward. "What is your response?" "Clarity," she said. As she spoke, every holographic console in the chamber blinked. The lights dimmed. The Council's security feeds were overridden by a single projection, a rotating view of the Valerian fleet. But the image had changed. The wedge formation was gone. Several ships were drifting without propulsion. One carrier had begun to spin slowly, systems flickering like fireflies. On screen, Earth's observation vessels, small, unimposing craft that had lingered on the diplomatic sidelines, now bloomed with capability. Their hulls opened like mechanical flowers, revealing arrays of signal disruptors, AI command beams, and deep-spectrum countermeasures. The chamber erupted. Voices in 50 languages demanded explanation. Chen stepped forward, voice raised above the noise. "They fired the first digital volley an hour ago, attempted to isolate our communications, cut our logistical nets. Phase 3 was activated in response." "You attacked their ships?" "No," Vera said, raising her voice, calm but sharp. "We converted them." A stillness swept the room again. Earth's counterintelligence systems engaged selective on-board override. "We didn't destroy their fleet. We rewrote it." Ambassador Krivtal blinked rapidly. "You took control of their vessels?" "Most of them. Some of them surrendered on behalf of their own crews." The Minari elder was staring at the feed, his frail frame trembling slightly. "You did this, without firing a single shot?" "That was the idea," Vera replied. "We've never found pride in destruction. Precision has always been more elegant." "But this is war," another delegate said. "No," she countered. "This was a test." And Zarkal failed. As if on cue, a new image filled the display. Zarkal himself, contained within his own flagship, seated upon a throne that now resembled a cage. Disarmed, isolated, and no longer broadcasting commands. Vera turned her gaze to the room. "You all wanted unity. Peace. A system that could protect its members without defaulting to chaos. But you built it around hierarchy and ritual. You relied on figures like Zarkal to maintain stability, figures who believe violence is the only valid grammar. Earth believes differently. A crystalline delegate rose, their body glowing faintly. You mean to lead us then? Vera shook her head. No. Earth has no interest in ruling. We want to inoculate. A pause, heavy and deliberate. We've studied galactic governance. We see the rot. The politeness that masks paralysis. The traditions that enable tyrants. So we chose to intervene, but not through conquest. Through integration. Chen took over then, reading from the datapad. We've compiled vulnerability assessments for 82 council member systems. Internal faction risks. Energy shortages. Diplomatic fault lines. Our AI has developed models to resolve 90% of them within a decade, using Earth-developed socio-political stabilizers. You've already done this? A delegate asked. Earth never arrives empty-handed, Vera said. The Elysian representative, still skeptical, narrowed his glowing eyes. And what if we decline this intervention? Vera turned toward him, voice soft and crystalline in its resolve. Then you can explain to your people why you turned down stability, prosperity, and the tools to prevent the next Zarkle. Silence. Dense and layered. Then came the unexpected. Applause. It began with the Minari elder. A slow, deliberate gesture. Then Krivtal joined, followed by a delegate from the Jintorii. The rest followed in waves, reluctant, awkward, but unmistakable. It wasn't triumph. It was recognition. And resignation. Earth had passed the test. The rest of the galaxy had not. After the session, Vera stood in the station's arboretum, the same spot where she'd first watched the stars with wary amusement. Now they looked brighter somehow, more obedient to her gaze. Chun stood nearby, his hands behind his back. They're drafting the declaration now. A new charter. Security Council reforms. Enforcement Authority realignment. She nodded. Give them space to think it's their idea. They'll be more committed that way. Chen allowed himself a brief chuckle. You sound like the AI. I programmed half of it. A small pause followed. Then, quietly, do you ever wonder if we push too far? Vera didn't answer immediately. Her fingers brushed a nearby leaf, a curious local flora with glassy texture and impossible symmetry. Earth has always been the outlier, she said. Born in adversity. Raised in contradiction. We learned to laugh at trauma, plan in chaos, and smile while bleeding. We didn't push too far. We arrived. And the galaxy wasn't ready. Chun looked down. They will be now. Behind them, screens throughout the station displayed updated council protocols. New security hierarchies. Earth at the center, not as ruler, but as the blueprint. And in a sealed cell on the far side of the station, Zarkle stared blankly at the walls of his containment chamber. No guards. No interrogations. Just silence and a single message blinking on the far wall. Next time, try diplomacy. He didn't respond. He couldn't. Back in the arboretum, Vera checked her chrono. I have to make a call, she said. To whom? She smiled faintly. Home. In her private suite, a secure console awaited. She activated it with a palm scan and voice print. A holographic projection materialized. 5 seated figures, their faces partially shadowed by security protocol. They all bore the Earth insignia. No names were used. Only code designations. Report, said the center figure. Operation Apex concluded, Vera said. Valerian military compromised. Council infrastructure realigned. Stage 1 transition to Earth-centric stabilization complete. Resistance. Minimal. Psychological tipping point achieved with limited force. Narrative reshaped. Council now considers Earth essential for continued peace. Phase 2. Ready for deployment within 2 cycles. Full influence matrix engagement pending. Minor cultures requesting annexation of advisors. The figures nodded as one. Good, said the voice from the center. And your assessment of galactic leadership potential? Vera looked directly at them. They're dreamers. They have potential. But they need a shepherd species. one unafraid of hard truths. We're not here to rule them. We're here to teach them how not to destroy themselves. The figure leaned forward, shadows tightening. And if they resist? Vera's smile returned, tired, but resolute. Then we remind them that we didn't conquer the galaxy. We just convinced it not to get in our way. The console dimmed. The transmission ended. She stood in silence for a moment, listening to the quiet hum of 1,000 systems bending to Earth's will. The stars outside no longer looked like threats. They looked like possibilities. Chen's voice came from the doorway. They've named the new council sector after Earth. The Strategic Humanity Initiative. Acronym's not great. Vera raised an eyebrow. What's the acronym? SHI. She groaned. Great. We've saved the galaxy, and now we sound like we're selling weight loss supplements. Chen shrugged. Could be worse. Could be us, she said with a grin. And now it is. In the halls beyond, the council prepared for its next session, not to question Earth, but to learn from it. A new galaxy, redesigned not by war or conquest, but by precision, patience, and polite, terrifying predators in tailored uniforms and scuffed boots. Earth hadn't taken the galaxy by storm. They'd walked in smiling, and the galaxy had quietly handed them the keys. And all it took was one slap. The rest was just paperwork.